In the most uncomplicated way to tell you what Parasite is about, I would simply say that it's about the decay of a relationship, as well as the physical decay between two people. More importantly, however, I think it's really about the lengths, the drastic lengths to which people go in order to keep other people in their lives, no matter how devastating or horrific the consequences may be for either person. It's a very, very dark piece. I would even say that there's a shrieking hysteria running rampant throughout the text. It deals a lot with mental instability. And I guess you could say it's over the top violence and sexuality uh, could could be construed as satire in a way, uh, in order to illustrate certain social issues that I'm straining to emphasize in this piece with regard to sexuality, gender, even the very state of living and being, um, the birthright of having flesh, um, and the physical limitations of our flesh as human beings. So it's a very cynical piece regarding uh, human interactions as well as corporal limitations regarding our flesh and other people's flesh. Um, I think it's a very nightmarish piece. I'm certainly a student of experimental horror films, very surreal sort of filmmaking, such as Eraserhead from I think 1977, and Begotten, which was made in 1990. Both very unnerving and disturbing, surreal sort of films that are as if someone filmed a nightmare. So I would definitely say that Parasite takes cues from those two films in a way to sort of illustrate this mental unbalance, I suppose, with regard to the mental instability in one character. Um, but it's a very, very dark piece. However, I hope that the audience will like these characters, no matter how horrific their actions are. Um, and I hope that the audience will feel compelled to follow them on this really horrific journey. What scared me the most as a kid was actually what I enjoyed and loved the most. I was really obsessed with classic Universal monster movies like Dracula and Frankenstein. The first one that I ever saw was The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I was probably 8 or 9, and I remember being up all night. My parents just furious, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, just screaming at me, "We're never letting you watch those movies ever again." Um, but I sort of pursued the horror genre, even though I was quite fearful of it, um, and reached a point where I really overcame a lot of fears, um, primarily because I think it's such a healthy way to deal with fear. Um, I've now graduated to Dario Argento and like Hellraiser. So um, I'm probably a little too desensitized now, but that's the life of a horror writer. There are really only two things that I'm currently fearful of. One of them is what's really at the crux of Parasite, and that's the idea of the degeneration and the decay of the human body, um, how inherently fragile our flesh really is. I certainly find our bodies fascinating. Um, the human body really always has a strong presence in most of my work in the field of horror. Um, However, rightly so, because I can't help but feel an impending betrayal between my body and myself. Um, I think it may not be something we think about on a daily basis. However, I think subconsciously we are very aware of our bodily limitations with regard to our flesh, and how prone we are to sickness and disease and decay. So I find our bodies really actually quite unnerving. The other thing that I'm actually quite fearful of is other people. Um, I always say that while children are afraid of monsters under the bed, adults are sensible enough to be afraid of other people. I think what human beings have done to one another and continue to do to one another is disgusting and far more horrific and grotesque than what any fictitious creature or made up abomination could do in a fiction work of horror. Um, so I really am quite cautious of um, people. And I guess those are really the two things that stand out to me as my current fears. The inherent decay and degeneration of our body, and quite frankly, other people. I find both fears very sensible, very real, but just very unsettling.